rice.
Salad.
I kept working and nobody got it.
It's a lot.
Yeah, really lit, you know. So it's a long time and I load it back.
And with that, and we don't do it.
You keep driving.
Already a minute late.
Brian.
Just talking to Hudson and all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to call.
All right, go get
I
it.
haven't called him in a while.
Yeah, we don't really have another thing that we.
Why, Mark?
Wayne, because. You get news from Facebook or they give you news.
Oh, I'm gonna go get something. It wasn't out when I came.
Oh, so.
Yeah. Facebook has. Is that your cactus out there? Yes.
If you know the house at all,
Thank you for noticing.
Yes.
go to it or work it.
No, it's a problem. And,
This lock stairwell keeps coming up.
was it really?
Oh, I don't know why she won't. I know why they did it, to be honest. It's sheltered, but
Yep.
there are times.
We're almost getting started, everyone. People are still getting their holiday food treat.
It went by, they in the garage, they went.
Mexican stuff.
Go in, number one, stairwells. Young people coming in.
Or whatever, right?
Changing.
I think from like chicken English
So
neighbors.
it's definitely with kids in garages and all the way down, man, it's so elevated. It doesn't make any sense.
Thinking of this.
So.
How many more thoughts we're gonna do so far?
That's another good one for January.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Let me make a note of that.
She has, the authority.
No, it rained.
Well, good to be a mayor, so.
Isn't that convenient now that?
Try not to micromanage.
Land has been.
We have a security
But it was
director.
only filled in, right?
He's retired.
So,
It doesn't make any sense. Emergency call stations are inside the still, it doesn't make sense. It shields.
Because they clean up the people using stairwells as their.
At the where, sir?
I don't know. Always the big.
It's still that they can't get in. That's the stairwell's blocked all the time, so. Most of the day it's locked and it's not when you need it unlocked at night. So.
All right, everybody.
Oh. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for this wonderful spread. Yes. Yeah. Like to call the order of the meeting of December 16th for the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Look for a motion on the minutes and roll call. So moved, Mr. Chair.
That was Art Rugg.
All right, and then Earl's second.
I don't see Aloyo.
Oh, there's.
Oh, there she is. Okay, good.
Sylvia, have at it.
All right, from Auburn, we have Bill Jean
Present and yes.
in the room, and we have Chris Sterndale.
Present, yeah.
Bedford, we have Ed Kaminsky.
Present and yes.
I think I put an N in your name. Sorry about that.
Been doing it for decades.
In Bedford, also, we have Mark Snyder,
Here and yes.
and online, we have Nadir Ali.
Here, present, yes.
Thanks, Nadir. Candia in the room, we have Ron Lavender.
Here and yes.
From Chester in the room, we have Deb Munson. Here and yes. 1 second, I see Deb Levens just joined us. From Deerfield in-house, we have Errol Rhodes.
Here and present.
And-
Yes.
Thank you, and Fred McGarrett.
Here and abstain.
From Derry, we have John O'Connor
Present, yeah.
and Richard Tripp.
President abstain.
And I'm not seeing our usual Jeff Moulton. So from Francistown, we have Linda Kuhnhart. Here, yes. And Gary Schneckenberg.
Here on state.
From Goffstown, do we have Jacob? Yep, Jacob LaFontaine.
Here and yes.
Thank you. No one from Hooksett. From Londonderry, we have Art Ruggenhouse
I'm here and yes on the minutes.
and Patrick Cheatham.
President, yes.
From, also in Londonderry online, we have Brian Battaglia
Here and abstain.
and Deb Levens. You muted yourself now, Deb. And for whatever reason, there we go.
Here and yes.
Here and yes. Oh, yeah, you have to get really close. From Manchester, here in the room, we have Dan O'Neill,
Here and yes.
Kevin Shepherd,
Hearings.
Peter Capano,
Here and yes.
Ray Clement,
Here and yes.
and I had a feeling she snuck in. And we have Eliza Augusta.
Here and yes.
Thank you. I don't know why I get so excited about these things. From New Boston, we have Alan Campbell in the room.
Here and yes.
Thanks, Alan. No one from where? From Wyndham, we have in the house Ed Lapointe
Yeah, here and yes.
and Peter Griffin.
Here and yes.
And online, we have DJ Withy.
Here and yes.
Now, have I missed someone? Okay, I'm seeing lots of other guests, but also we have from DOT, we have William Rose
Present, and I'll be in abstention.
and Bill Watson.
Actually stepped out of the meeting.
Stepped out. Okay, I'm gonna do the cross out. And although non-voting, just want to acknowledge Craig Tufts from Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hi, Craig. I'm also seeing Jack Wade from DES.
Good afternoon, all.
And let's see, Nancy Vaughn.
Hi, yes, just an observer. Thank you.
Okay, just a private citizen, a member of the public kind of thing?
Yes, a member of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know why I said private citizen, but there you go. Let's see, so just a person of interest, and we have Alex Mello from Wyndham in-house.
Hi, everybody.
I mean, online, what am I saying? Anyone else? I have forgotten. We have, of course, we have staff, but I think that covers it.
Okay, great. On to new business. We have an MTP consideration. We're looking for to adopt the year 25 to 50 Metropolitan Transportation Plans, and James Vale will be presenting.
All right, excellent. So I'll try not to take too long here. We at the last meeting went over at a high level the content of the MTP. And for this meeting, I would just like to cover comments from the public comment period that took place over the past 30 days from November 11th to December 15th. So once I get my screen sharing, we'll get started. Oh, looks like it's already sharing. Cam, can you see this online?
Excuse me. No, we can't.
Okay. How about now?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so let's see. Oh, there we go. As I noted last month, we did a review of the content from the draft MTP. Just a quick precursor, the MTP is a long-range strategic plan which defines goals, objectives, investment strategies for the development and management of the region's transportation system. That public comment period ended yesterday, and this meeting is the public hearing for public comment for the MTP. During the public comment period, we got one comment from the town of Hooksett, 3 comments from members of the public and several comments from from the city of Manchester. In addition, staff identified 1 change that's recommended in the MTP. So I'm gonna summarize the comments that result in recommended changes to the MTP, and then seek a motion for adoption with changes. So the first comment here was from Grant McGregor in the town of Hooksett. Grant reached out to us to let us know that New Hampshire DOT had increased funding for project 43851, which is New Hampshire 3A Hackett Hill and New Hampshire 3A Main Street project. Reason for the change is to better align the MTP project list and the cost of the project in that list with known information, this increase in funding for this project. So SNHPC staff recommend updating the MTP project list to match known project cost information and align the changes included in tip amendment number 3, which I think Nate will go over later. The next comment we have here is from Maggie Baldwin, the City of Manchester, the Public Works Department. She noted that there was a new roads and projects viewer from New Hampshire DOT and recommended updating the link. That's great. We recommend revising the URL link in the MTP to match, to go directly to the newest version of viewer. So not really a controversial thing. So another comment from Maggie. I think the rest of these are for Maggie. City of Manchester. She suggests better defining intercity bus in the absence of intercity bus service stops in Manchester proper. So we recommend revising the narrative of the MTP section to better describe existing bus services and regional access points, and add or refer to a map showing connections between local fixed route and intercity bus services to better illustrate the multimodal connectivity that exists within the SNHPC region. Next comment. Maggie asked a question about questioned the title of other multimodal services and facilities as a section in the MTP. And upon reviewing this, the intent of the section is to highlight the region's transportation services and facilities that do not really fit neatly into the standard modes of transportation, right? So you have the bike and walk and vehicle, and then you have transit, and then you have these multimodal facilities that exist in the region. And so because what's described in the MTP in this section is not all encompassing of multimodal services and facilities, we recommend just changing the title to supplemental transportation facilities and services. Next comment was a suggestion to reference New Hampshire DOT's 2022 State Rail Trail Plan for interregional connectivity. It's a very relevant document, and our recommendation is we include a reference to the State Rail Trail Plan in this section of the MTP that she refers to. Next comment asks if the airport modernization planning should be referenced in the MTP. While the SNHPC MPO has no real role with airport improvements, which are signed by FAA, its funding is signed by FAA. New airport facilities may impact surface transportation, and it is worthy of mentioning in the MTP narrative. So our recommendation is to revise this text on page 36 to reference the potential for surface transportation changes associated with future airport modernization. And for those of you who are curious, this really the sort of anticipated extent of this is some changes to perimeter road. Next comment, Maggie suggests a reference to the safe systems approach. I mean, we heard a lot about SS4A and the research that was done on the approved safety action plan that SNHPC adopted this year, I think, right at the beginning of this year in January. So Maggie references context of countermeasures. So you have countermeasures that might make sense in a rural area that don't make sense in an urban area. And We agree with those things. So the recommendation here would be to incorporate a reference to the safe systems approach, including language stating that these strategies are really context sensitive. Next comment here. Maggie had a question about the need for project MAN05. This project is a proposed new roadway that would connect from South Commercial Street to Queen City Ave. The intent of this project was based on the Manchester Transit Oriented Development Plan, which was published in 2020. And the plan includes recommendations for infrastructure to support high density and walkable land uses by leveraging transportation opportunities in the area. And so if you go and read through that document, you'll see that in this particular area that this project is proposed, that there's a call or a recommendation to put together a TIF district and to lay down a street grid and to build significant housing and other uses so that it would have transit connections to the mill yard in downtown. So a fairly comprehensive project. But if Manchester is not supportive of this project, it can be removed. So what our recommendation is, if requested by the city of Manchester, to remove project MAN05 from the MTP project list. One other change, Zach in our office noted that there was an error in this map that you're seeing here, one of the highlighted yellow areas in Bedford. For Catesby Lane, had an incorrect location. So this very minor change, the map's been updated to reflect this location of the Catesby Lane project. There were several other comments with no changes recommended in the MTP. They talk about grammatical error, which I couldn't find in the document, a comment about rail service, a comment about the correlation between transportation and aging population, questions about how the travel demand model works, inquiries into the project list and the project selection process, and asks about the study of TDM, or transportation demand management. And so we've responded to all these questions directly to the people that asked them. I've recorded this information. It will be submitted as a communication with the adopted MTP once it's adopted. And so all these have been documented, but for sake of time, I didn't go through them. So that's what we received for public comments. Because it's a public hearing, I would just open the floor up if there are other public comments that people would like to make. This public hearing is the place and the time to do that. And if there are, after public comments are finished, like I mentioned, we're seeking adoption of the MTP with the recommendations that I presented before you today.
I have a question about Maggie's comment. If then with Manchester and removal of that portion, does that mean since Manchester hasn't asked for it to remove yet, it stays in? Like, I don't understand how if we approve the plan and it's in there, it can later then get taken out.
Yeah, I think, we would lean on, we'd send a communication to Manchester and see what they want to do. I'm
confused about voting to approve it now. I hung up on the timeline. If we approve it, it's in, right? How can it?
Yes.
If we approve it?
Yeah.
So I'm looking for.
I don't have an answer for you other than, because nobody's explicitly asked us to remove the project, that we would just approve it with it. And if we received a communication from Manchester that said, we really don't want this project in the future, we would amend the MTP at a future date. Yeah.
And they would come back to us to a vote to approve an amendment?
Yeah.
Would it need to be if it was already,
know.
if we're approving the fact that if that request comes through, then we accept that request. Is my interpretation. I don't know if anyone sees that differently.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I agree with that. It sounds like we're handing over the question of whether or not it gets included to staff, given their conversations with the city of Manchester. So it's in if the city says leave it, it's out if the city says take it out. I'm okay with that, but that I think there should be a timeline.
Yeah, there's
I mean,
I can't-
there's a deadline for.
But end it for the next 25
Right,
years.
exactly. And that's the point I was
That's
just
what I'm
making.
hanging up on.
There must be a deadline.
Well,
When is this due?
it's due this month. It's due about
Yeah.
before the end of the year. So, you know, nobody in Manchester explicitly asked us to remove the project. We just don't want to preclude Manchester from knowing that they have the option to have this project
Yeah.
removed if they want to. So,
They ran out of time. And here we are right now. We're going to give our recommendation one way or another.
yeah.
But if
I get hung up on these, oh, here's this giant mass of money that we couldn't spend if we ever felt like it. A bubble that hangs there and that isn't, I like my bubbles pinned down with a string. So, I would consider making a motion to amend the question that a timeline be December 28th, that we have a response.
Yeah,
from the
before the end of the year, sure. We
But if
can,
it's due by the January 31st, then I
Yeah.
don't want to leave it hanging.
yeah, we could do that. We can just, whatever, we'll send a communication to Manchester Public Works. Ask them the question, tell them we have a deadline of the end of the year
Whatever
to make a
deadline is,
determination.
I don't know what the deadline is. If it's
Yeah.
due the first, I don't know if it's due to be done the 30th or January 15th.
Yeah, so it's the end of the year. So, yeah,
We'll
that
make-
works.
We'll make a note that when the motion's put
Yes,
forward that.
Okay. thank you.
Good.
You think the lawyer needs our names when we're?
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Linda Kunat from Francis.
Thank you.
For the recommended change, Aloyo, so.
Richard Tripp, Gary. I didn't read the entire plan since it's 140 pages. But it seems that something this magnanimous should be revised periodically. Is there anything in your plan that would do that?
Yeah, so the MTP is subject to 5-year renewal. So every 5 years,
That's what I thought. It originated in 2020. And this is a revision of that document, right?
yeah, and then the one that was approved in 2021 was a revision of the prior.
Yeah.
So it's been established for many years now.
Yes. Well, I didn't see that in the section that I read, but I did get the gist that it's renewed or revised periodically. So I think that what people are concerned about is something that, you know, will go away just by the way the document is laid out, you know, and that every 5 years it's reviewed and revised, you know, so nothing's going to stay there for 25 years.
Yeah, that's a valid point. And you know, this thing evolves with changing priorities. So in 5 years, the economy will be different and all the towns will have different priorities, and those things all get updated and reflected in the long-term plan every 5 years.
That relieves some of my angst.
Oh, good. But yeah.
We're still open for public comment. Anyone else have public comment? Richard. Yeah.
So it appears that people aren't aware that this plan gets updated every 5 years.
Yeah.
Is there somewhere in the plan that it makes that statement?
God.
I kind of knew, but we kind of forget. We forget these details.
Yeah, it's, as you mentioned, it's 100-something pages long. And you know, Sylvia tasked me when we started the update, said, all right, it needs to be short and people need to be able to understand. I said, all right, I'll make it short. And it's where we got to.
It
So
went from 200 pages to 140.
yeah.
Steal ones from Nate. It's got the 3 sections about the tips. Just.
If the document does not explicitly outline the process for update, I can add that. We can make that stipulation that be added.
So at least just reference it.
Yeah.
You know,
it is a federal regulation.
Yeah.
Oh.
So is there the
I was gonna
likelihood
say-
that it's in there, Nate?
I'm sure there is a reference to the federal regulations that govern the MTP in there, but
Yeah.
unless you know what you're looking at, you may not know that it means.
Yeah.
An executive
Yeah,
summary
right.
at the front end.
We get old.
I was gonna say, where's the funding source? Is the funding source reference?
The funding source for the update of the MTP, or
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something called PL funds that comes from federal government. That is referenced in the document. I know. So,
Good, thank you.
yeah.
Any additional comment?
James, could you back that slide that led to uneven discussion for Manchester?
Which one on Manchester? MAO 05?
Yeah, that. Means.
Doyle, that was Ken O'Neill, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't put for sake of brevity of the whole group here, I didn't put her full question in here. But essentially, which isn't much longer than this, but essentially, if you've read through the TOD plan, you'll see that it lays out a pretty substantial redevelopment of the southern portion of Elm Street all the way over to Queen City Ave, basically where the Elliott River's Edge and the MTA bus terminal. And it lays out a rather ambitious program for redevelopment of that area, something like 2,000 units of housing, over 100,000 square foot of ground floor uses like office and retail, and the infrastructure to support that kind of development. Now, those things are inextricably linked together, right? Like you can't have 2,000 housing units unless you have the ground infrastructure, the street grid, the gas, the power, the water, the sewer, all those things that go with that to support it. And so this project is one of those things that really fit into the mold of something that could be incorporated into the MTP's long-range plan as a project as a result of the recommendations of that TOD plan. There were other ones too, you know, another recommendation of the TOD plan was to have a shuttle service that would serve the whole mill yard area all the way from exit 6 down to the Velcro and run along that length. Matter of fact, there's a little, it's hard to see, but there's a little blue map that Zach made up there that kind of showed the service area for such a shuttle.
But doesn't that exist now, the green dash?
This is the way it's proposed in the document is very different. So it would basically have a park and ride facility at one end that would load up the parking demand that would exist with several thousand new jobs in the mill yard, and then distribute those workers into the mill yard as a parking solution that, you know, basically would be unfeasible to have parked 7,000 additional cars in the mill yard.
There are other federal projects affected by this green dash. One, the RAISE grant, putting the bridge over the rail line is another. I just don't know, keeping this in or taking it out affects any of those.
Yeah, I mean, it leverages what's being done with the RAISE grant. So you have that bridge that's going over the railroad tracks and then connecting up to Elm Street. And so the idea is that, you know, the southern terminus of this new roadway to Queen City Ave will connect where that bridge lands and create a new connectivity in the grid. But like was mentioned here, we really can just reach out with a communication to Manchester and ask them for clarity on what they want to do in terms of keeping the project in and removing it.
I think that's what we're gonna have to do anyway. That's how our cities are expanding and everything, so we have to update all that. What wasn't allowed at one time is gonna be allowed now, we can get more density put in and everything else. That's what you're seeing here, you know.
Yeah, I would note, this is not a new project either. It's not something that's appearing for the first time in this MTP. It's in the current MTP. So it's in the 2020 MTP because it was in the transit-oriented development plan that was published. It was just basically a long-term implementation project identified in the out years of the MTP for implementation of what was proposed in the TOD plan. And so we carried that forward into the draft MTP and continue to hold it as a project. And so, you know, whether or not it still reflects what the city's desires are in the area, like James said, I don't think the comment was, please take this out. It's, you know, well, maybe it's good to talk about whether this is still needed or something along those lines. So there wasn't an explicit request to take it out, which is why James is kind of presenting it this way, but it's not a new project. It's in the current MTP in the out years, and it was basically a long-term, you know, placeholder for implementation of that aspect of the TOD plan.
This is Kevin Sheff from Manchester, and this may have been something that was needed as part of the raise grant application, you know, showing something like this as part of the raise grant application. I'm not sure, but
My memory of that is that the TOD plan was something that was referred to in the application for the raised grant, but none of this is contingent on the other side.
This is the kind of plan that, like, do we ask Manchester? I mean, like, hello, Manchester? Why didn't Manchester tell us that they wanted it in a row? It's because we didn't ask them?
Well,
I don't understand how.
the context of it is one person at DPW asking the question in an email.
Right.
So, you know, it's not reflective of the city as a whole making a concerted decision one way or another.
So what I'm saying is, how come they're not tapped for info on whether it should stay in or out?
There's,
don't-
you know,
I feel like I'm missing how the communication goes between someone's asking, why do we leave it in? And nobody's said we should leave it in or take it out because they haven't been asked. I don't know.
well,
I'm not,
We
might not be asking.
certainly work with we work with every town.
yeah,
So we're, you know, I'm sure that, I mean, there were interviews, there were all kinds of things that James conducted to make sure we had input. But remember, this is long-term, as Nate already said, it was in the MPP, it's gonna get reviewed in 5 more years. So all you happy people are gonna be back here, arm wrestling about it again. And in the meanwhile, maybe something else has actually come to fruition with the current projects, you know, so things
Yeah.
may have been changing on the ground or getting closer to where actually something gets built. And then, but it's good to have these kinds of things in case you're going for a grant, you know, for those kinds of things. So I think, I mean, obviously, Nate and James and Suzanne, they all are in contact with the Manchester staff.
yeah, I know I have bad tone. I don't mean to be accusatory. I'm just looking for how do we know that we've asked the right group, the right question? I can't, you guys do an awesome job.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Well, Peter maybe wanted
Go ahead,
to, but
Peter Papano, Manchester. This is a result of a review of the project,
Mhm.
so that's conversation right
Yes.
then and there. And it's not the first time they've seen it too, it's an actual revision of a plan that's been revised over time. We though, if we can just say, leave it in, we can just vote and say.
We can say either way.
Yeah, we don't have to go back to the city and say, well, what do you really want? Cause they may not even know. It's a long-term planning document, so
Right.
would that help? I'll make a motion that we just approve it with it in as.
See, I do just the opposite. I would rather take it out. It's
And
that,
if it's necessary, and if it's not necessary, then they don't have to act, but it's there, it doesn't say.
There's no funding associated with this project. It's a long-term out-year project. It's not in the 10-year plan or anything yet. There's no funding program for it. It's just an illustrative project, you know, for the future in case you ever wanted to apply for grant funding to implement it or anything along those lines.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second with just a comment that listening to Nate and James, it's had no impact on other federal grants we've gone for in the same area. So keep it in that. It could help future. Kevin thinks maybe it was involved with the raise grant, so.
We'll look for an official motion, but I think we need to close the public comment hours before we get for official motion then. So, any other comments?
unless there's people from online.
I agree with what we've been saying. I think if work has been done to create this, even if it is a pie in the sky dream, it's better to have a record of it. Personnel changes all the time and you don't know what people's history are from, knowing about things, so having a documented form, I think is definitely
Sorry, who was that? Does the planning commission maintain a gig file of comments so that we have a baseline to start the next revision?
Yeah, we have a log change file that we're keeping for this.
So if I was to, 2 years from now, say, oh, I want to change page 35 of the MTP and add this thing, you would have a record of that somewhere, so.
Yeah, we submit it to our federal overseers too, so that they can take into consideration all the context of public input, regardless of how it's acted on.
All right. good.
Loyal, that first question was from Deb Munson, and that was Richard. Trick. You got it?
Thank you.
I can help you with this later too, Loyal, so.
Okay.
Any other comments for this public comment? Online? Online? Just asking if we know whether it's in-house. Anyone online with any comments? Hearing none, James, you want to close the public comment period?
All right, yes, thank you.
And so we are going to be looking for a motion to take action on the adoption of this Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Someone like to put forward a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve it as presented.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
That was Peter Capano and Dan O'Neill.
Was that with the amendments that's proposed?
Yeah, with recommendations.
This recommendation, yes, that's it. You accept that?
Yes.
And I'll only comment, so we're open to comment. Discussion, do we want to include something for a 5-year review in that motion? Or is that unnecessary?
We have to do it by federal law.
Okay.
Fine. It's a core document of the MPO, so.
I just wanted to make certain that everyone felt comfortable with that before we took a vote. Any other points of discussion? Not, we'll look for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposition? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
On to our next item, overview of proposed 2026 regional safety performance targets. Dave Pilson. That's in there, Dave. Only because I had a good friend named Dave Pilson.
Your camera, so it's not even.
I apologize to everyone back here. I'll try to include everybody, but.
How's that look, Cam?
It's not like presenting full screen. I can see the slides on the
I don't know.
side. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Great, well, thank you, everybody. Today, Zach and I will be presenting on safety performance measures for 2026. Next slide, please.
What's this?
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, safety performance measures, they're part of the transportation performance management system, which is an ongoing process where they take data, analyze data and performance measures, and use that to give informed decisions to the people who fund and put forth projects for our transportation network, for the purpose of getting a more productive, efficient, and safer network for all roadway users. Next slide, please. All right, so when we're talking about national performance goals, these are the 5 performance measures that the FAST Act requires state DOTs and MPOs to report on. There's safety, which we'll be talking about today, pavement and bridge, system performance congestion, freight movement, and congestion mitigation air quality, or CMAQ. Next slide, please. So these are under safety, these are the 5 federally required safety measures. Number and rate of fatalities, number and rate of serious injuries, number of non-motorized fatalities, and serious injuries. These will be the 5 that Zach will be going into a deeper dive today. Next slide, please. And for the way this process works is that the state DOTs set their own safety performance targets. They're handed down to the MPOs, and the MPOs at that point have 3 options. They can support the state targets. They can come up with their own regional targets or a combination of the both. So for 2026, SHPC is recommending supporting the state target for non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries and adopting regional targets for the other performance measures. And as we can see from the graphic on the left we do have a lot of work to do in this area. And now Zach will go into a deeper dive of some of the data.
Yeah, so I'd like to give some more context than just going into the actual numbers. So let's begin with last year. So in 2024, our region saw 25 fatalities and 105 serious injuries. The economic cost of the fatalities was about 50 million, and the cost of the serious injuries was about 126 million. And that includes things like productivity loss, property damage, medical costs, rehabilitation costs. And you see it's pretty, we got about 64% our vehicle, about, a third, or I'm sorry, a quarter are motorcycle, and then the rest are pedestrian bicycle, which I'm going to refer to as vulnerable roadway users. And NHTSA did a study in 2021, I believe, looking at 2019, and the economic cost of motor vehicle crashes throughout the country was about $340 million. I'm sorry, $340 billion. And overall, about those not directly involved with the cost crashes accounted for 3/4 of all the costs. So even though we weren't in the crashes, we were the ones that pay for it. We don't have good location data for serious injuries in our region, but we do for fatalities. So I went back and looked at about, was that 13 years, which is about 241 crashes. And that's the map there. It's a little hard to tell what's going on. So if we look at density, you can see that it's concentrated in Manchester, but also along the highways. And if we look at different types of crashes, they look very different in their location. Here's the density of all fatal crashes on expressways. So you can see that it's on 293, 93, 101, Wyndham. There's a big hotspot right there. If we look at all fatal non-expressway crashes, we can again see that it's concentrated in Manchester, with a little bit there in Derry. We look at all fatal non-expressway motorized crashes, so this is not including pedestrian bicycle crashes. It's you've got a more even distribution throughout the region, but it's still concentrated in Manchester. But you can see hotspots in Derry, along the highway, or along, say, Route 3, 103, 3A. And if we look at just vulnerable roadway user crashes, it's very concentrated in the center of Manchester. If we look at them, vulnerable roadway users, so anybody who's not in a vehicle. And here, to see them side by side, you can see how the distribution is very different. We also have data on things like whether you're using your seatbelt or if you're on a motorcycle wearing a helmet. The car crashes are circles. The motorcycle crashes are triangles. Black means a seatbelt or helmet was used. Red means it was not. So seatbelt use for fatal crashes was 17%. For helmet, for people on motorcycles, helmet use was 26%. And am I saying that if everybody wore their seatbelt or wore a helmet, we would solve all our problems? I'm not saying. Oh, actually, I'm going to look at this first. Here we can see the distribution throughout the region by town. You got to be very careful here because, for some of these towns, we're talking about, Auburn, no safety uses was used on 100% of the crashes. Well, we're talking about, if we're talking about expressway, we're talking about 3 crashes. So, but looking at the region as a whole, you can see that it's about, 20% are only, 80%, excuse me, are not using safety equipment. But even if they had, they would still probably be serious injury crashes. And serious injury crashes are still very damaging and costly. In 2024, serious injury crashes cost the region over 126 million. So even if you wore your seatbelt, it still wouldn't solve all the problems. Here we have speeding, and you can see in red is where speeding was a factor, and black was not. You see it's about half of all the crashes. Let's talk about speeding for a minute. Oh, let's look at this again. I got it. You can see that there it's about 60. It's a little bit higher on the highway. You got 65% as opposed to about 50 on the not on the highway. Let's talk about speeding for a minute. Why do we speed? We speed to save time. Driving faster can be fun. We do it unconsciously, it just happens. Sometimes to match the speed of other drivers, we're doing defensive driving. The soundproofing, and there's less feedback in cars. You know, cars are much quieter than they used to be, so you don't get that feedback. Also, almost nobody besides me drives a manual anymore. And
I've still got.
okay. Well, they don't, well, even my car, they don't make it with a manual anymore.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you've never driven a manual, you won't know that when you push it on the pedal, you get a little bit of a pushback. Not a lot, but a little bit. And when I've noticed with driving automatics, it's just kind of, pedal to the floor.
Are electric vehicles even worse? Since they're responsive.
I haven't driven one.
It's changing color and telling you you're speeding.
Yeah, that's.
That,
Yeah, they're being.
They let you know right away
Yeah.
when you're speeding.
Cars, now. But
He's talking about pushing on the gas.
I have not driven an EV, so I can't speak for that. But they do, all new cars, if you haven't bought a car in the last 10 years, cars now constantly bing at you for telling you all the things you're doing wrong. So
I'm not very.
could be how much time, let's look at how much time speeding saves. If I'm driving from Omaha to Cheyenne, that's about 500 miles. If I'm doing that at 65 miles per hour, that's 7 hours and 40 minutes. If I'm doing it at 85, that's 5 hours and 51 minutes. So I'm saving about 2 hours there. And I'm not going to be argue for speeding, but that means 2 less hours of this. That's, kind of a convincing argument. Yes.
Speedy can be driven by the type of car you have. You have a Ferrari that goes 250 miles an hour.
Sure.
You want to use that.
Yes, that's true. But that's not.
It's also true. I drove cross country one time and I was not driving fast, so I was getting good gas mileage.
Yeah.
Now there are other people driving fast. They were stopping more often, so they passed me like 6 times.
So, but that most of the time I'm not driving in the the Cheyenne. I'm driving to work. This is roughly my commute from Corey Square to the SNHPC office, about 1.4 miles. If I'm doing that at 25 miles per hour, it's 3 hours and 22 minutes.
3 hours.
I'm sorry, there's 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 hours.
You keep walking backwards.
Yeah. I have a very slow car. It shouldn't make fun. If I'm doing that at 35 miles per hour, that's 2 hours. God damn it. That's 2 minutes and 24 seconds. So it saves about a minute. And what's the difference between 35 miles per hour and 25 miles per hour? Well, it matters when it comes to survivability. So this is a graph showing how likely you are to die at various speeds at different types of crashes. So it goes from 0 to 100% fatality risk. And we have 4 different types of crashes. Auto hits pedestrian, auto hits fixed object, auto hits sideswipes another auto hits auto head on. You can see it goes from, nobody's dying at, 15 miles per hour. Well, that's 25 miles per hour and that's 35 miles per hour. So if I'm walking to work, which I do when the weather's nice, it goes from me being about 25% chance of dying if I got hit to about almost certainly that I would die. And if I'm driving to work, it goes from being, and if I'm driving to work and I hit a telephone pole, it goes from me almost certainly surviving to about 50-50. Also doesn't make a lot of sense to speed in an urban environment because the limiting factor is not the distance. The limiting factor is this. On my commute, I have 6 signalized intersections and 1 stop sign. What's slowing me down is not what's limiting my me getting to the office isn't distance, it's the other interaction with the other vehicles. So here we can see here's the real median travel speed at last year, weekdays, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. You can see that all those different spots are slowing down to 10 miles per hour or less. The one exception being the bridge. So people who know that bridge, you go from one stoplight, you have quarter of a mile where it's just, a straightaway. And we can see that when we look at speed. So this is looking at the 95th percentile travel speed. And so on this stretch of the bridge, people are going, so the 95th percentile, so that'd be 1 in 20 cars is going 46 miles per hour or more. Some are going more than 50. And that's because it's just a straightaway, and then you go and sit at the light at the other end. So I like to do this just for comparison to let us know how we're doing. How does the United States compare to other countries? The answer is not good. What we have is a chart there of a table of road fatalities per 100,000 residents. And we go from 1995 to 2022. And the United States is the last one there on the bottom, above the average. And these are all countries of 10 million or more in the OECD. And if we look at 1990, nobody's doing real well. But, South Korea goes from 22.6 in 1995 to 5.3 in 2022. Everybody improves with the exception of Chile and us. We improve a little bit, but then we kind of come back up. So the United States fatality rate grew by 19% between 2010 and 2022, while the average country declined by 25%. Well, we're not South Korea. Okay, well, let's compare ourselves to other large English-speaking countries with wide open spaces. Australia and Canada were all a little bit higher, or were higher in 1995, and all of them improved. And so now we are about 3 times worse than Australia. Now, is it just because we drive more? There's some inherent danger in just being in a vehicle and moving down the road. Well, not yes, but no. So here we have 3 different values. And this is all the values indexed. The US rate is indexed as 100, whatever it was that year in 2019. And then I just compare it to the other countries. So here we have fatalities per capita, fatalities per registered vehicle, and fatalities per miles driven. So you can see that some of it is that we just drive more. But even when you compare that, we're still way higher than all the other countries. And there are some reasons for that. So I had the pleasure of going to London about a month ago. And that's Westminster Abbey for anybody. And there I've kind of highlighted, you can see that there's a 20 sign there. And that's saying the speed limit in London is 20 miles per hour. You say, don't they use the metric system there? No, they lied. They told the rest of Europe that they were going to, and then when they left, they kept using imperial. So they do miles per hour. But so the speed limit there in the city is 20 miles per hour. And in Great Britain, which includes England, Scotland, and Wales, last year saw about 1,600 traffic fatalities. The early estimates for the US is around 40. The US population is only 5 times larger than Great Britain. And so that's one of the reasons is that you're there, it's 20 miles per hour. It's the most chaotic traffic I've ever seen. There's, buses, cars, people on bikes, people on scooters, they're all racing in there, but everybody works because you're only going 20 miles per hour. How about injuries in general? So here we have road injuries per 100,000 residents. The US has made some real improvement, but we're still much higher than the average. And if we look at fatality and injury rate compared, and that's indexed together for 1994, we've made improvements, but we're kind of plateaued. So what's the traditional response to this? The traditional solution would be we're going to use the 3 E's, which is engineering, education, and enforcement. But the 3 E's problem with the 3 E's paradigm is it neglects the public health principles, which stipulate that population interventions that require less individual effort should be prioritized, and the one need focus on the pathologic agent. And the pathologic agent in this case is the kinetic energy of you suddenly coming to a stop. We've, about in the 90s, other countries started to realize this and started implementing things like Vision Zero, the safe systems, and which focus on the release of the kinetic energy as the agent responsible for injuries. So the pathologic agent is the stop, and they will emphasize the system designer's role. The U.S. is starting to. Oh, I forgot this slide. To make this point, here's the hierarchy of control for traffic safety. At the top, for most effective, you have elimination. So eliminating the exposure to the crash before it can occur. And at the least effective, you have personal protective equipment like motorcycle helmets and protective gear. I am not telling you to not wear a motorcycle helmet or your seatbelt. I wear a seatbelt all the time. The here is saying though, if you want to make an system-wide improvement, you have to focus on the things that require the least amount of individual effort by people. And the US has started to kind of figure this out. So now we have a guide to applying the safe systems approach to transportation planning, design, and operations. This was recently published by the Transportation Research Board. I have a copy of it. I was going to hold it up, but now it's at my desk, so I won't do that. And you say, well, Zach, we have, $10 million to spend every 2 years. We can't make a solution to all these problems. And you're right. But we can do some stuff because like here, all the crashes that are in red are on federal aid eligible roads. 84% of the fatal crashes in our region occurred on federal aid eligible roads. And 45% occurred on locally controlled roads. So roads that are under the control of our towns. And you can make real solutions. Here is an example of Helsinki. As of September 2025, Helsinki had gone a full year without a traffic fatality. In the 1980s, it was close to the 30 a year. Well, you could say, Zach, we're not Helsinki, we're not Finland. We can't implement certain practices like we can't do automated enforcement. And that's true. We're one about half a dozen states where automated enforcement is illegal under state law. My counter to that would be in 1991, 314 people were killed on Warsaw streets, Warsaw, Poland. 2023 saw the death toll drop to just 29. Warsaw's fatality rate is 1.6 deaths per 100,000 residents. Manchester's is more than 6. Poland does not currently allow automated speed enforcement. As of March 2024, Hoboken, New Jersey had gone 7 years without a traffic fatality. Automated speed enforcement is legal in New Jersey. So you can make real effort. Yeah, you can make real improvements even without all the possible solutions. And keep in mind, we're not talking about ending all crashes and all injuries. This is the injury severity for all individuals in New Hampshire crashes in 2024. The big blue slice there is no injury. The green is unknown, which probably means that there was no injury. Because if there was a serious injury or fatality, it would be recorded. What we're interested in is that yellow piece there, which is a serious injury, and then the slice of fatality, which you can't even see because it's so small. We're trying to make interventions for the 1.3% of injuries in the state. Okay, now we'll actually get to what we're here for.
All right, so this is a graph from the Safe Streets for All, or SS4A. James mentioned this during his presentation. As he mentioned, the action plan was adopted by SHPC earlier this year. And one of the components of the action plan is an official public commitment by a high-ranking official governing body, in this case an MPO, to committing to an eventual goal of eliminating fatalities on our roadways. This is SNHPC's commitment to that goal, where we commit to having fatalities by 2035 and eliminating by 2050. We understand that this is a very ambitious, aspirational goal. There's a lot of behaviors that we can't control that go towards this, but we figured we want to put this in here to highlight the importance that SNHPC values on having safe streets and the partnerships that we do to achieve that goal with our federal, state, and municipal partners.
Okay, so the first measure is number of fatalities. So here we have in red are the actual number of fatalities, the 5-year moving average, and then the X's are the targets that we set for those particular years. So you can see that we're going up, projected to be way above any of our targets. So the state target is there in blue, and the one that we propose as part of aligning with the SS4A plan is in orange. The second measure is fatality rate. So this is fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. We have the X's there again on the targets, and you can see in 2022, we lowered our target because previously we had been below the state rate consistently. That might not be happening now. You can see that the projected rate is going up. We'll see what happens. State there is in blue and the orange is ours there. Third, we have the projected number of serious injuries. You can see that it's flatter, but we're still going up a little bit. The targets haven't really met any of them. The state is in blue, and then again, we are in orange. Again, we have the serious injury rate. See, it's pretty flat, but we are trending up. The state's target there is in blue, which we would be below that, but then we have ours in orange.
That's again 100 million miles
Yes.
driven.
Yeah. And then the final one is just the total number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And you can see the target moves around a little bit more here. It's flatter, but we are trending up. This is the example where we would be adopting this. We suggest that we adopt the state target because we have what would be our presumed target there in orange. And then we have the states, which is actually lower than ours. And we don't want to have a rate that we don't want to adopt the target, which is above the state's rate.
Why?
Because we're saying that we think we should essentially, we would accept more deaths.
All right, and so here is a summary table. This is the state level performance targets for 2026. We have our 5 safety measures on the far left. Then we have our 2 rolling averages, 5-year rolling average, 2019 to 2023 was a previous one. The current one is 2020 to 2024. To the right of that, we have our trends, recent and desired. And as we can see from the numbers at the statewide level, the numbers are going up in all of the metrics except for non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. That was the one bright spot at the statewide for this safety measures. To the right of the trends, we have the state targets for 2026. These are expressed with the decimal point because they are averages. Here we have a similar table. This is showing SNHPC's 2026 regional safety performance targets, set up the same way as the states. We can see from the numbers in the trend line here is that for the SNHPC region, we have gone up in every metric except for the serious injury rate per 100 million VMT. That one went down a little bit. We're not exactly sure why that is. There's some theory that it might just be more people driving on the road diluted the rate a little bit, but we're not sure why that one went down when everything else was going up. To the right of the trends are the state targets. And to the right of those are the SNHPC's recommended targets for 2026. As we stated earlier, we're recommending adopting regional targets for the first 4 safety measures and then supporting the state targets for the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries.
I can't remember if we made it clear that we're not asking for any action today. This is just informational only. We will adopt it in January.
Yep. And here is a table just bringing everything together, showing SHPC's targets next to the state targets for 2026 and the recommended actions, which once again, we're recommending regional targets for the first 4 measures and supporting the state target for the non-motorized.
That's it.
Yeah, as Zach said.
The book that you was gonna hold up.
Yeah.
You left it on your desk.
Yeah.
Will it contain some of the statistics that you've been talking about?
I'll be honest, I have not read it yet.
Oh, is it something that we can access online?
Yes. Yes. So they have you can buy a physical copy. There is a PDF though for free online.
From whom?
Sorry, who was that asked the question?
That was
Richard Tripp.
I didn't get that.
Oh,
Could you try again?
sorry. That was my fault.
Stop sharing.
Okay.
So that's from the Transportation Research Board, National Academies. Yes.
Yeah, these statistics you provided, how are they influenced or how are they affected by the availability or non-availability of public transportation, which gives people an alternate way of moving and then not driving? Like New Hampshire has no public transportation, so you're forced to drive your car.
There's, you know, so you are more, I believe it's 20 times more likely to die in a car crash than you are on a bus. So there are issues like that where, you know, the mode shift is, the mode makeup could explain some of it.
Just like to note that the MTA's had 0 fatalities. Manchester Transit
Yeah.
0 fatalities that exist.
Yeah.
Like,
Eliza. Augusta.
I've been to London and you mentioned London. London has an extensive subway system, as do many other cities. So if you did not have that, how many more people would be in cars or buses, and then that would drive the rate up? If you have that alternative, does it keep the rate down?
Hypothetically, I would say so. In London's case, if they didn't have the subway or the bus system, I don't know if you've been there, but traffic doesn't move as it is right now. So I can't imagine all those people, you know, on the road. But yes, the mode distribution does have some influence, but we can see even if we account for the miles driven, you know, we're still higher than these other countries.
Aloyo, that was Peter Griffin for your clarification.
Okay, thank you.
So Aloyo, Mark Snyder speaking. I've got one question and one comment. For my question, can you bring up one of the density charts they had there? So you know, we talked, it's sort of interesting to look at the charts on the density of accidents where they happen. Regardless of whether they're fatalities. So yeah, that's a good example there. I guess my question is, you know, you talk about speed being a contributing factor, right? But how about entrance and exits from roads, average speed, volume? I gotta figure there's other factors that are strongly influencing why these areas are encountering more dense. More density.
I think that's certainly true.
What about cell phones?
That's true, but other countries have cell phones too.
But I'm sure that contributes to density. I think, to me, there's something about those specific darker red spots that says that there's something going on there.
Access points.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, yes.
Where they actually are crossing each other.
What about?
You got the one slide with all 4. So I mean, you spent some time talking about speed being, I was just wondering if you want to also talk about these other factors.
Yes, no, we certainly do. I was just pulling out speed as just as an example, and it's also something we have good data on.
So Zach, I'm sure there's a lot of questions in the room, but we do have a little bit of time. We gotta pay attention to the rest of our agenda here. This is online, all this information?
It will be.
It will be on the PC website.
Yeah.
Sir, I did have one other quick comment. I find this talk about desire and targets to be perverse. To me, it's perverse to say we have a target of 20 fatalities. We should have 0 fatalities. So I understand that we're being driven by the state on this, but I think that we should tell the state that's perverse. And that maybe we want to talk about it in terms of the number of reduction of accidents and fatalities from where we are, as opposed to a target, which is above 0. It just seems weird to me. Are we gonna be happy with 20 fatalities this year? No.
I've talked to other MPOs around the country, and other MPOs, people do have the same reaction. They're kind of like, this is strange. Why are we we're aiming for? So that's, maybe it's a poor choice of words.
But it's not, I understand it's coming from the state, right? Okay, thank you.
All right, well, Errol, let me follow up there and.
Just one quick question. You had a slide showing the reduction in the, yeah, a little further on. And you probably do have data about this. To what degree are those drops attributable to things like safer vehicles? And that kind of stuff. Or is that just totally hard to do?
It's hard to say because there's so many factors. Yeah, because yes, vehicles are much safer now, but we also, because we think they're safer, drive faster. Yeah, so like it's a lot of moving parts.
And they drive smoother and more efficiently. You know, even with my pickup truck, I can do 80 on the highway with one hand on the wheel without concern. Where
just getting started with this.
Where a couple, when I was a kid, most people, their cars, if you went over 65, you either heard it or was shaking or
Right. I think probably need to end this discussion for the sake of time, and seems to be a lot of conversation. Dave,
I'll be available
Zach,
afterwards.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, hopefully you'll be available if someone has more pointed questions, they can hit you up. Thank you. Appreciate it. Our next item on the agenda, still in the MPO, is the overview of the fiscal year 2025-28 TIP amendment number 3, and that's Nate. This is again informational only.
It's normally Nate.
Yep.
Today of all days, in the holiday spirit, I would give you a break from listening to me talk about tip amendment.
So who's gonna grade
So
this?
Dave will actually be.
All right, perfect. Dave, you're on.
All right.
Again, informational purposes.
Yep, this is informational only. All right, can everyone at home see that in full screen?
It looks like it's loading, Dave.
Okay.
All that high resolution photography there.
It looks good now.
Okay.
Change the display settings.
Yeah.
Well, I can move it.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. What is going on?
Dave's doing that, but that makes me think of having driving friends for
Oh,
work was awesome. Seeing a 93 lines of Manchester city limit. There's nothing but trees. It's no way you can see. I just need it, dude.
All right. All right, well, we'll just go with this. All right. So as Nate mentioned, because it is the holiday season, we're going to give him a little time off from presenting. So I'll try my luck with presenting TIP Amendment 3 today. So it wouldn't be a TIP presentation without the inclusion of this slide. And I can see why Nate does like to have this at the beginning, because this slide does show how the whole development process, the whole development project process development fits together. It also shows how the MTP, the 10-year plan, and the TIP fit and feed into each other. Today, we're going to be talking about the TIP, which is comprised of projects in the first 4 years of the 10-year plan. These are projects that are furthest along in the project development process and closest to implementation. The current TIP cycle is 2025 to 2028, and this will be our third amendment for this TIP. And so you'll be getting a sneak peek before the public does of what's in TIP Amendment 3. We'll be opening this amendment to a 10-day public comment period starting on January 12th. It will go into the 23rd, and then at the January 27th MPO meeting, it'll be considered for adoption. So let's dive in and see what's in TIP Amendment 3. Our first project is Bedford 44296. This project entails the construction of 3,800 feet of curb sidewalk on Old Bedford Road from New Hampshire Route 101 to the Memorial Elementary School. The proposed amendment for this project is adding right-of-way funding in 2026 and construction funding in 2027. And the right-of-way and the construction funding were previously programmed beyond the TIP horizon and were not included in this TIP, but they have been moved up to 2026 and 2027, so they will be reflected in this current TIP. Next, we have BOW 29641. This is safety improvements along New Hampshire Route 3A in BOW at the River Road intersection and the New Hampshire 3A Grandview Road intersection. This one has a couple moving parts. They're adding PE funding to 2027, shifting some of the right-of-way funding out of 2026 into 2027, and then moving all of the construction phase funding out beyond the TIP horizons. This is one of the projects that was identified in the 10-year plan as being a project that will be funded through the design phases, but construction is being postponed indefinitely. You may be asking why we are carrying a project that is located in BOW, which is a central New Hampshire Planning Commission community in our TIP. Well, portions of Bow, Allenstown, and Pembroke are located within the Manchester UZA. So we have an MOU with Central New Hampshire that any of the projects that are located within the Manchester UZA will also appear on our tip and be part of our metropolitan planning process. So that is why this one is here today. Next one up is Candia Raymond 43839. This is rehab and reconstruction of a section of Route 101. Majority of this work will be done in Raymond, but there is some work along the border, which is why it's appearing here. For this one, the proposed amendment is shifting a portion of the 2028 construction funding beyond the trip horizon. So it was programmed for 2026, 2028. That will now, a portion of it will now be moved to 2026, 2029, which is beyond our tip horizon. So that portion will be taking out of this current tip. Next is Londonderry 13065B. Construction of a new connecting roadway from I-93 exit 4A. This is a child project of the larger exit 4A project. And the construction of the new roadway in this instant is Old Rum Trail, which has been mostly constructed. The reason why this is here is it's being, project is added to the tip. And so this project had construction funding programmed in 2024, so it wouldn't have showed up on our 2025-2028 tip, which is here today. But it's being added to reflect the costs that are being adjusted with the pending New Hampshire DOT indirect cost rate, which is going from 10 to 12%. So because of that reflection in that indirect cost rate, it's being added into this tip. Next up is Hooksett 43851. James mentioned this one in his presentation. This is work along 3A at two intersections, Hackett Hill and 3A at Main Street. They're increasing the construction phase funding for this one for 2028, and that is done to match the current project estimates. It should be noted that the majority of the construction funding is programmed for 2028. There is a portion that will go beyond the tip horizon and will be shown in the next tip for 2029. This is one of our statewide projects. This one is the statewide recreational trails program. This program provides funding for construction and rehabilitation of recreational trails throughout the state, purchase of trail equipment, things of that nature. So this one is proposing to increase the other phase funding for 2026 through 2028. And the reason for that is to include unobligated funds that were previously from previous years to ensure that those funds do not lapse and New Hampshire does not be able to access those funds in the future. Next, we have the Technology Transfer Center 45271. This is the T2 Center at UNH. And what the T2 Center does is they provide tools and training for programs such as SAIDS and RSMS. They also provide training for municipal roadway agents and DPW departments for their staff. This is a project that's proposed to be added to the tip. And the reason for that addition is to reflect funding for the T2 Center in 2026 and 2027. Next up is Ware 41471. This is a bridge project to address a section of New Hampshire Route 77 over Choate Brook. They're removing, the proposed amendment here is to remove 2027 PE phase funding. And the reason for that proposed amendment is based on the current developed project schedule. The funding is now going to be programmed in 2025, 2026, rather than 2025, 2027. And lastly, we have a scope only change. This is for the OHSS program, which stands for Overhead Sign Structures. This one is purely typographical. They spelled rehabilitation wrong in the approved scope, so they fixed it in the proposed scope. So that is why this one is in here today.
The cost associated.
And so this is purely informational.
Again, being informational only.
This is
public hearing period on this.
Yep.
I encourage everyone to review it. Any questions, Dave, you're available, I assume. And then sake of time, want to limit questions here today if possible. But anyone have any that are real critical? If not, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
So, good job. Thanks, Dave. All right, is there any other business for MPO? If not, I'll look for an adjournment of the MPO.
Second,
All right, did you get that? Is that Chris? Errol
and Linda.
and Linda. I wasn't even sure. All right. With that said, we'll look for a motion to open, call to order the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission and motion to take action on the minutes.
So move.
Linda moves. Second.
Let's just do it.
Ross.
Or should we just do it as a group? I mean,
Yeah.
no one's left.
Well, a couple people have left, but.
All right, I can go really quickly.
Go quickly.
Auburn, Bill,
Present, yes.
Chris,
You know.
Bedford, Ed,
Present, yes.
Mark,
Yes, present.
Nadir. We'll get back to him. Candia, Ron,
Here.
Chester, Deb,
Here, yes.
Deerfield, Errol,
Here, yes.
Fred,
Here and abstain.
Derry, John,
Present, yes.
Richard,
You're abstaining.
Francistown, Linda,
Yes, yes, here.
Gary,
Here, abstain.
Goffstown, Jacob.
Present, yes.
Excellent. Londonderry Art,
Here and yes.
Patrick,
Here and yes.
Brian,
Here and abstain.
thank you, Deb. Yeah, I got here and yes. Manchester, Dan left. Dan O'Neill left. Eliza left. Kevin,
Here and yes.
Peter,
Here and yes.
Raymond,
Here and yes.
New Boston Ellen,
Here, yes.
Wyndham Ed,
Here and yes.
and Peter,
Here and yes.
and who was,
Nadir?
who was,
Nadir.
Here and yes.
here and yes, and DJ, thank you.
Is there any pinch hitting?
Whew.
Oh, I'm just gonna kick it off.
All right.
Sylvia.
Oh, Andrew snuck in.
That's right.
That's right. Andrew Haddock from Chester
Here and yes.
is a here and yes.
All right. So we're in order for Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, new business item overview of transportational planning grant. It's informational only. I had James, but they seem to be switching up the lineup today. I guess we got Suzanne.
So James wrote the staff report and he's going to be doing the bulk of the presentation.
Okay.
So he'll have the pleasure of bookending today convening. But I figured since this is something we collaborated on, I would just kind of give it some framing right off the bat. So as you all, oh, let me just make sure, are we sharing properly to our home viewers? Anyone? Cam? Yes. Okay, fantastic. So we all know that housing is a very significant issue for our region. It's, you know, not just our region, but the state, the country. And I'm going to be sharing some really exciting work that James and I got to work on over the past few months around exploring employer-sponsored housing options. So just to give you a little bit of background on the origin of this work, this was funded by a grant from the Community Development Finance Authority. It went to 6 different RPCs where we basically all decided to take a piece of the pie of this major challenge of housing and see where we could kind of dig deeper and explore some innovative solutions. So just for example, Southwest Regional Planning Commission hosted a accessory dwelling unit design competition. Nashua took a look at their brownfields and adaptive reuse of brownfield sites for housing development. SNHPC decided to focus on employer-sponsored housing for a variety of reasons. One, we know we are an economic hub for the state. We know that there's a lot of growing industries here, and we know that we're hearing from employers that a major barrier to recruiting and retaining workers is a lack of affordable housing. So it's a challenge on the labor market side of things. So what did we do? We conducted some pretty widespread outreach to employers to gauge their interest in digging deeper on this issue. We had to be opportunistic. Not everybody was going to be ready to come to the table and kind of open up their books and share what their thinking is. So we had to see who was really willing to get into the conversation. We ended up providing technical assistance to 2 employers to analyze tailored workforce housing development opportunities for them. And I will say, James has extraordinary expertise in this area and does this in kind of his side consulting work. So in a lot of ways, we were able to use grant funds to offer pro bono support to employers who might be interested in understanding the feasibility of employer-sponsored housing. We then presented findings to the C-suite at each of those employers. to kind of have some conversation about feasibility and what next steps might be. And now we're in the process of really reflecting and summarizing on the key learnings that we can share with you all. And also today we're hoping to get a little bit of feedback about how this work resonates with you. So just in terms of high level, who are our outreach targets? We did some preliminary conversations and kind of broad brush outreach with largest employers. We had conversations with municipal planners, economic development staff, local developers. I happen to sit on the board of the Next Gen Manchester Resiliency Council, and we know that the biofabrication industry has a lot of federal funds coming towards it. It's a place where we're really hoping to grow a lot more jobs. And so I've pursued Next Gen, the Regen Valley Tech Hub Consortium, also reached out to healthcare and educational institutions, and New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility, because those are folks who are actively working together about housing issues and really were most likely to engage on this topic. And in fact, the two employers that we identified to work with are both members of the Tech Hubs Consortium. So we're not going to reveal identities. We were kind of talking about sensitive issues, sensitive financial issues, and potential real estate transactions. So we're going to share as much information as we can that we think will be salient to folks in this room and might spark interest for considering what the relevance might be in your own communities and with employers that you might be working with. So employer A is an educational institution. They're looking at a large scale site and considering new construction opportunities. Employer B is a nonprofit organization. They actually had an existing building where they were considering doing a partial renovation to integrate some housing options. So we gave them here's the various technical assistance options we can provide. And this is primarily what we did for both of them. An analysis of local zoning and site constraints. We looked at build out options for each of those sites. We provided a very James will take all the credit and walk you through further details beyond this slide. But we provided an early assessment of some preferred housing typologies and what that would look like in terms of financial modeling. And we proposed next steps. Who do you need to engage? What are some key partners that'll get you there and move this closer towards fruition? So with that, I'm going to pass it over to James, and he's going to take it from here. And I'm going to excuse myself. When we move our meetings, that means I have 1 o'clock that butts up right to this. So I'm going to go to the other meeting. Thank you all very much.
Suzanne, thank you. She did a nice job explaining, sort of setting the stage for this project. Albeit a small project, but an exciting one, not work that we usually get to do. And so we'll just dive right in with employer A here, who had a large scale site and was willing to explore options for new construction on the site that they have. So the first question was really, what does the zoning allow them to do in that site? And so we were able to review the zoning in detail and determine the use case scenario. So like what forms of housing would be allowed under the zoning and the dimensional standards that would control the placement of that housing. And there are other elements of the zoning too that control this, things like density limits, FAR, floor to area ratios, if you're familiar with that, or open space requirements. And so all those were taken into consideration. We use the information from the zoning to create prototype lots that would maximize the efficiency of available land. So what that means is, for a single family home, what is the optimal lot dimension to minimize the amount of road frontage you would need to build and minimize the lot area so that you could get the maximum number of units on that land. And then we were able to take that prototype and basically create a stamp out of it, So we have this uniform design for a lot, and we could just put them one after another next to each other to identify what the maximum potential of build out would be under the existing zoning in that community. From that, we're able to calculate things like gross building area, estimate development costs, and show per unit housing costs, which I think will come as a surprise to some of you when we go over that. So what do we look at for housing forms? We looked at single family homes. We looked at within that, and a subtype of that is like a manufactured housing unit, which is a single family home. It's just got a different form factor. And in this particular town, the zoning didn't restrict it. You could also consider things like accessory dwelling units, although one of the things we know is that new construction, single family homes with an ADU aren't particularly cost feasible. You make a lot of profit off a single family home and not very much profit off the ADU. We also looked at cottage courts, we considered townhomes, and we looked at small apartments. And it says 12-unit walk-up, and why that's important is because 12 units is the maximum efficiency you can get for an apartment building before you have to add an elevator. And when you have to add an elevator, you have to add sprinklers, you trigger ADA compliance, and a whole litany of things happen that increase the cost of the building significantly. So this building you're seeing here, I actually helped Ann Ketterer of Novo Architects connect with an employer down in Nashua years ago about this project, which was built during COVID. And, I like to hold that up as a good model and successful project. It's 24 units in 2 buildings, no elevator, and it has ADA compliant units on the ground floor.
And it's not.
Yeah, well, beauty is subjective, but yeah, I think it's kind of neat. So these are the housing forms we considered. What we found was that cottage courts were really, through the zoning, were the best outcome for the site. Now, that's not to say that it would preclude all other housing types. A good development site might have a nice mix of different types of units, but you have to buoy that against a couple of things, right? A private owner might want to maximize the value of the land, or the feasibility of construction might limit the outcomes. But in this particular case, cottage courts seem to be a good fit on many levels, and we'll go through some of those. So this picture you're seeing on the right is characteristic of a cottage court. And one of the things that makes them unique is that baked right into the design is this common green in the center. And then all the units are clustered right tight up against this green, and there's no parking. You don't put parking between the unit frontage and the green. It's supposed to be a pedestrian scale community space. The parking is removed to the edge of the lot, and then the housing is focused on one another. On a per unit scale on the left-hand side, you see a layout, and this also matters for cottage court. Architecturally, you want to have a progression from more public type spaces in the house to more private spaces. So what do you have in the front? You have a covered porch where you might sit outside and welcome your neighbor to come say hi to you and have a conversation. Then your dining room, kitchen, living room areas, which is kind of a semi-private space. And then you get into more private uses like your bathroom, your laundry, your bedroom. And so it's a really pretty clever design. I will note that the zoning for this town did not exclusively regulate some features of this, and it did regulate other features of it, like the requirement for a porch fronting on the house was a regulation requirement. And so what does that look like? Well, we wanted to know by scaling this up. So we use AutoCAD as a tool, and we drew out the dimensions of what was required by zoning, and then we drew in the unit that we would fit in there. So in this particular town, on the left-hand side, you have a single family lot. It's a half an acre, and that rectangle there represents a 2-story single family home at the median square footage of a home in that town. So if you think about that, it's 1 unit on a half acre, so that's 2 units per acre. If you're ambitious or the market allows, you could have an ADU on each of those lots, so you could get as high as 4 units an acre under that scenario. And then for the cottage court, what we're able to do is look at this in a couple different ways. The first we looked at is the minimum lot size, which is a half an acre, but you could only get like 5 units on that. So we bumped up the lot size slightly larger. It's just about 1 acre. And within that, you're able to get efficiencies and get a full 12 units to get 12 units per acre density for that particular layout. Then we were able to apply this to the site that this particular employer had and calculate totals. So what did we see? Well, we saw with single family buildup potential, we were able to achieve 78 lots or 78 units. If you add ADUs to that, you would get to 156 units total. The homes had a gross area of 2,600 square feet abouts. And when you cost that out on a per square foot basis, that is a $900,000 home today. That's what it costs to build and put that up for sale. Okay, so that's not feasible for a lot of people. So here's where we're land with cottage court. So the cottage court build out potential is 42 lots at 12 units an acre, so it can fit 434 units. And they have a gross area, each unit has a gross area of 1,140 square feet. So that comes in an estimated per unit cost of around $400,000, way more in the ballpark of what somebody can afford today for housing. So I thought that was a very striking data point, and I wanted to share that. So then we move on to employer B. We looked at this. Employer had a vacant space. They wanted to look at the potential for building it out with apartments. They said, what are our options here? And after taking a cursory look at the space, we really thought micro units might be the best fit. And so what is a micro unit? Well, it's an efficiency apartment, essentially. It's usually ranges between 300 and 400 square feet, although they could be a little smaller, they could be a little larger. And they really characterized by maximizing efficiency through dual purpose spaces. So things like Murphy beds or built-in function furniture that functions in two ways. And for a lot of people, this is going to be an unrecognizable living scenario. But this is not an uncommon living scenario. There are many places in the world and in the United States and even on the East Coast in New England that accommodate this kind of unit. And there's a market for this. There are people that choose to live like this because A, they don't have a lot of alternatives, and the cost of housing kind of corners them into a product like this. But if the alternative is this or nothing, people will rent a micro unit. So they mainly exist in highly urbanized areas where affordability and proximity to employment are essential, and they're usually occupied by a single person. People kind of characterize them as entry points for young professionals into a new city. Although we see in this market in Manchester that like divorcee dads and people who are transferring jobs also use these things as well. So there's many users that would fit into the market. Favorable conditions for this to exist: high rental prices in the existing market, real close proximity to good paying jobs, demographics that are willing to accept smaller households. So that's not everybody. It's not us. It's not me. It's not you guys. High construction land costs and the zoning that allows for this kind of thing to exist. There are examples of this that exist in Manchester. Manchester has Elm Grove's Pearson Place, the flats on Hanover Street, and I think Red Oak's new building on Elm Street also contains some very small efficiency units that have Murphy beds, but I'm not certain of that. But my understanding is that there's some micro unit style units in the Red Oak. So there are examples of this being successful in Manchester, and there are people that occupy these. There's very low vacancy rates in these units. For those that are disbelievers in what you're seeing. So what we did for this employer is we explored the feasibility, pro forma, the market potential for building micro units out of this vacant space that they're holding. And we were able to determine that the rent, that you could fit 24 dwelling units in here and collect a gross rent of $440,000 at an average rent of $1,500 per month. And that would yield a net income of $231,000 a year. Now, knowing that information, you can determine a market value for a space like that. So the market value that was pegged to this is $3.8 million. So this project, when it would be built, would be worth $3.8 million to the open market. An investor might want to buy something like this. So how do we determine that? Well, market value is an equation that looks at the net operating income. So your income after you've paid all your expenses, you paid your property manager, you paid your lighting and your bills and your taxes, and what income's left over, and how can that be used? And that income that's left over is divided by something called a capitalization rate. And a capitalization rate is the amount of risk that the market is willing to take to invest in that product. The way I like to make the comparison here is if you had $100,000 and you could invest it in a building, or you can invest it in the stock market. Which one are you going to do, right? And so people, for various reasons, choose different paths. Some people invest in real estate because they think they can make a better return, or they're looking for more safety, or any number of reasons. Or they might go invest in the stock market. So every time somebody's making a real estate transaction at an investment level, they're contemplating the risks and benchmarking it against the performance of other investment vehicles like the stock market. So this capitalization rate of 6% is representative of the city of Manchester. There are other markets that are better and worse. So for instance, New York City, you get a lower market rate. You would get 4% because there's less risk. It's more of a guarantee that you'll make your money back in a New York City market. Alternatively, you could be in a place like Ohio, like Cleveland, Ohio, which is a high risk market because there's not a lot of growth and there's potential downsides in a market like that. So they might have an 8% capitalization rate. And when you divide the net income by these different risk percentages, you get different market values for the property. So that's an in-depth thing, but this matters a lot to investors. And I want the group to understand that. Anyways, so I've been holding out on some information on you, and I'm going to share that now. So we talked about micro units and their income. What we see here is that to build out micro units, there's a cost, right? And you're going to have to borrow money to build out. So the micro units cost $4.2 million would be the construction cost to build out those micro units out. Once you factor in the cost of debt service, you're borrowing money to do construction, it only cash flowed $75,000 a year. And what I didn't tell you guys is that this employer is sitting on this vacant space. It's already a dorm room. It's already approved and zoned as dorm room, and it's in current use as a dorm room. So there's not a lot of work to do to get this thing up and running as a dorm room. What we had was an initial conversation with the employer where they had an aversion to the idea of having dorm-like spaces on their property. They were afraid of the kind of clientele that would rent a single room occupancy, a dorm room, and wanted to explore options. So we did that. That's what we did here. So one of the things we knew about the dorm rooms is that it came in at about a similar amount of income, gross income, but you have twice as many units. You get 48 units instead of 24, and the average rent is $800 a month, which is, for somebody starting out in life who has limited income, that is a much more reasonable amount of rent. So the net income was a little higher and the market value was a little higher. The big difference here is because those dorm rooms already exist, the construction cost was much lower. And if they just were willing to manage those dorm rooms, the project would cash flow $218,000 a year versus $75,000 a year if they built them out as micro units. One other thing I'll note is we also looked at this as single bedroom apartments, but you could only get 12 for the whole project, and it wasn't feasible to manage and operate 12 units. The employer didn't want to be the manager of the space. They didn't want to operate in a 12-unit apartment building. And so that was kind of thrown out. Also, the rents are lower per square foot for a one bedroom. So, all right. So what did we learn from all this? We learned how to engage with development partners. We demonstrated our ability to do zoning analysis under different housing scenarios. To give options. We considered new typologies in housing, the micro units, and we evaluated business models, like what's the market value of a project like this. We also made an effort to pursue good neighbor approaches. That is basically encourage these employers to engage early with their municipalities to collaborate on solutions and to use the products that we produce to demonstrate to the town what their options were so they could have a more transparent conversation with the town about what exactly this employer is capable of doing if they just followed the rules. And if you can show that, then you can have a more transparent conversation about just exactly what it is the town can ask of you. So what are the constraints? We ran into a lot of challenges about unclear zoning and embedded disincentives around certain public perception of housing typologies, especially for employer A. Rising construction costs are a problem that everyone is dealing with. What we've heard is that the cost of building construction is doubled just for the materials and the labor. And when you look at civil work, site civil work, roads, drainage, moving dirt, it's quadrupled. Borrowing is expensive, and when you have to take out a lot of debt to carry a project, it doesn't create a lot of financial incentive for whoever's doing it, because you're not getting a lot of money back in turn for all the money that you're putting forward for risk. So for example, let's say you're going to build a $10 million project. Well, you got to put up 20% of the risk. So you have to put up $2 million. But that other 80% of debt is carrying a 7 or 8% interest rate. By the time you pay that off, there's almost no revenue out of the project. So there's not a lot of incentive to go and build it. So this is why land will sit vacant a lot of times. And then zoning and land value are main determinants of how land is used. So one of the things we'd see is that for employer A, zoning dictated the outcome of what we developed and showed to them. And in B, the value of the product after it's built drove decision making for that employer. So with all that said, I'm wondering if this group has any, comments and questions, but also ideas about how this might be applicable in your communities, or if there's scenarios where the Planning Commission could play a role in exploring novel approaches to hard to answer questions around housing. So
Great. Good. Yeah, okay. You have an area in town that I guess the old Ashbrook development. Oh, yeah, that's what, yes, nothing moving and stuff like that. Yep, they're doing the same thing, they're all pretty nice, because I got friends of ours that are in that. And they seem to be doing all right, they finally get used to it. They have, all up to date appliances. They don't have a stove, they have a microwave. Have a good sized bedroom of storage, and they get a good sized bathroom with tub and stuff. And the sitting area. And they can either get their meals in their apartment, or they go down, they get a general cafeteria down there where they can go eat, and they get regular chefs in there all the time. But they'll come in if you want. And it's pretty, they didn't have a ton of money, but they've grown used to it now and everything else, and they've settled into it.
Nice.
There's a lot of people in that place.
A quick question on him. With the tariffs going on between Canada and us with the lumber, how is that going to impact what model you guys have already just done?
I don't know how much of that price is baked in. All of our estimate of housing was just based on conversations with developers and what they're experiencing today. So, if tomorrow the cost of wood goes up another 30%, and wood framing is 10% or 20% of the total cost of construction, then it will have an incremental impact.
You kept talking about employer A, employer B. Is the intent to build housing for employees?
Yeah, so this conversation started out that way. It didn't necessarily end that way, So for employer A, they really were exploring ways where they could backfill a future need for housing on several different ways, to retain employees, to attract new employees, and other groups. So
it would be open to the public, the rentals.
It really depends on what the employer wants to do. What financial model do they want to take, right? Are they building the housing explicitly to offset their housing need of their employers? Are they going to offer these products up for sale and then offer an incentive to their employers? There's a lot of options here for how they can move forward. They could just own them and rent them to their employees. They could own them and rent them to the open market. They could do a hybrid of both. They're really not restricted by rules on how they manage their product.
So if they rent it to one of their employees and then they move on, I would assume that the rental costs would vary from an employee to an open market. Is that something that you considered?
Well, we didn't look at that, but propose an employer, I suppose an employer could subsidize people's rents. Although, yeah, I give it like, if they're gonna pay their employee less because they're providing them housing, then they probably charge less for the housing, so.
Did you look into, it looked like, there was a school and a nonprofit, so basically they're both nonprofits. So, are they paying property taxes?
On housing, I assume they would, unless it's, explicit to a nonprofit's activities, which if you look at how nonprofits are structured, if they have a profit-making enterprise, they're not allowed to have that be part of their nonprofit. So they would have to basically demonstrate that they're not making money off the housing units in order to not pay federal taxes on it. In terms of property taxes, I don't know what each town's requirements are for that.
Well, that's like, healthcare, so they pay taxes on healthcare, nonprofits, schools.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Couple of last quick questions and we can wrap it up. We're running almost a half hour.
Yeah, had you gone back to look at a very old concept, the 19th century mill communities, where the employers would also provide housing for the workers as a model. Yes, it may seem antiquated, but there might be some things in it. As part two, the micro units that you showed in converted office buildings, were they all, those conversions all micro units, or were they a mixture of different sizes?
For that slide that included Pearson block
Yeah.
and the flats, those are exclusively micro unit projects. The Red Oak one has some micro unit format or efficiency units within a project that has a mix of housing types or unit types.
What's a micro unit become a one-bedroom apartment?
Yeah. You have a separate bedroom. Yeah.
Just a wall?
The building code kind of dictates the size of a bedroom, so.
Ron, then we'll wrap it up.
Just a comment about this employee thing. Digital Equipment Corporation years ago had that issue, housing for their employees. They literally bought apartment buildings, right? Back then, in certain areas where they needed it, okay? They literally owned their own apartment buildings for the employees, for even, instead of a hotel room, you put your employee up in this apartment. And for people that were going to be there long term, you had this apartment, and they would pay, the employee would pay rent to the employer. Right? But it was a solution for digital equipment, but that required the company to also have an embedded real estate department within the corporation. But it does work.
Yeah, there's current examples of that too. I think DECA/RME owns and operates housing to transplant there.
And that company that has the healthcare organization that came and talked to us about a year ago. They built those little tiny cottage.
Yeah, the Rudolphs, yes.
Yep. So I see that what you've done could benefit Docking and Francistown. The hard thing to get when the planning board I'm familiar with to accept these new models is they won't come to meetings like this. Like you go and you try and tell them stuff or you offer them information, but they really need that face-to-face. Would you be available to go in person? You're like, you don't even have to do the whole talk, but it's putting the burden on you or train people to do the talk. I feel like this group's ability to meet with the community members who actually are the decision makers is what's going to make a difference in using your information. It's wonderful information. But when I go and try to talk to them publicly, it's because of my tone. It's like they don't want to allow the change to the zoning. They're so afraid that changing the zoning is gonna like turn it into something I don't even know, dystopian. Whereas I see these little tweaks to be so beneficial to the town, but I can't communicate why.
And I had that conversation with Sylvia about taking a road trip, putting together a road.
Yeah. Or maybe not, like, you could figure out what, you could train us
Yeah.
to do the talk, and then a guy from a different, I could go to your town, you could come to my town, it's the new face, that they listen to the new face, they don't listen to, so that's, if you could work on how to work out that the dog and pony show, I think it's wonderful.
If only we had that fun.
Just, but like, funny, so what do we need, you know what I mean, it's hot, I don't know, like I said, you tell them, you show them, it's on Zoom, they don't. They need the entertainment factor of the face-to-face, I don't know how to get it.
I think it's easier to sell these micro homes and so forth into the metropolitan areas.
Maybe so.
Because you go into into a bedroom community,
They
like
don't wanna hear-
Vandia,
they don't wanna hear.
what? We don't want that in this town.
But it's so needed. Well, they want cookie cutter too, I mean, but they wanna see that it's been done before. And the first, they don't like first time experiences. Okay, so maybe just get a list of ones that are built and then that we could convince the people, I buy pizza, get in the car, we'll have pizza, see the place.
If nothing else, James, this has spurred a lot of conversation,
Yes,
so I think
thank
we,
you.
really topic.
Thank you very much.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business that we need to address here?
One quick announcement, just at the request of Errol Rhodes, our commissioner from Deerfield. He is the editor of the Dooryard Gazette, which is quite an interesting publication. If you haven't seen one before, it's all about the town of Deerfield, everything going on in the town of Deerfield and beyond. He has left a number of copies of it here, and he encourages anybody interested to take one.
And there is a podcast, of course.
And he does have a podcast. And he has a wonderful voice. It's like listening to a news reader, a professional news reader. He's very good at it.
She doesn't have a New England accent.
If no other business, I would wish everyone a joyous holiday season, a happy and safe new year, and call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, for a second, a loyal pick your pick. All in favor, thank you.
It's really worthwhile to hear it.
Yeah.